Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit Mauritius on March 11th and 12th to attend their National Day celebrations as the chief guest. US President Donald Trump warns Russia of sanctions, tariffs until Ukraine ceasefire deal is reached, to push both sides to negotiate peace talks. France, Germany, Italy, the UK and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation back the Arab plan for Gaza reconstruction that would cost $53 billion and avoid displacing Palestinians. And India wins the Asian Women's Kabaddi Championship for the 5th time in Tehran. Defending champions India defeat host Iran in the final. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be on a 2-day state visit to Mauritius on March 11th and 12th. He will hold bilateral discussions with Prime Minister Naveen Chandra Ramgoolam. Prime Minister Modi is the chief guest at the Mauritius National Day celebrations. A contingent of the Indian Navy and the Indian Air Force will be taking part in the Mauritius National Day celebrations.
The Prime Minister is being invited also as the chief guest for the National Day celebrations of Mauritius, which will take place on the 12th of March. The Prime Minister will call on the new President of Mauritius, His Excellency Mr. Dharamveer Gokul, and this will be followed by bilateral meetings with Prime Minister Ramgoolam. It is expected that there will be meetings with other political leaders during the visit. Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Ramgoolam will together inaugurate a few projects that have been implemented with Indian assistance, and will also witness the signing of several MOUs on cooperation in the field of capacity building, bilateral trade, tackling of cross-border financial crimes, and promoting small and medium enterprises. On the occasion of the National Day, a contingent of the Indian Defence Forces will participate in the celebrations. There will be a ship from the Indian Navy that will be present in Mauritius for the occasion, and in addition, the Indian Air Force's Akash Ganga skydiving team will also participate in the ceremonies.
India's President Draupadi Murmu inaugurated a national conference on the theme Nari Shakti Se Viksit Bharat in New Delhi on Saturday. This conference is being organized by the Ministry of Women and Child Development to celebrate the International Women's Day. The President said International Women's Day is an occasion to honour women's achievements, raise awareness of their rights and dedicate ourselves to promoting gender equality. DD India's Deepika Mehto has filed this report.
India's President Draupadi Murmu led the celebrations on the occasion of 50th edition of International Women's Day through participating at an event organized in New Delhi. On the occasion, the President addressed the women participants on a national level conference called Nari Shakti Se Viksit Bharat. It was organized by Ministry of Women and Child Development in New Delhi. The event witnessed cultural participation that showcased various roles of women through cultural lenses. Speaking on the occasion, President Murmu said that one should consider the role of women and how we treat them in the society.
हमें एक ऐसा आदर्श समाज का निर्माण करना चाहिए जहां कोई भी बेटी या बहन किसी भी समय कहीं भी अकेला जाने में और कहीं भी रहने में डरे नहीं। महिलाओं के प्रति सम्मान का भाव ही भयमुक्त सामाजिक वातावरण का निर्माण करेगा। ऐसे परिवेश में जो आत्मविश्वास उत्पन्न होगा वो हमारे देश को नई ऊंचाई लेकर जाएगा।
The event also witnessed high-level panel discussions on important women-centric topics, bringing together renowned women leaders from STEM, business, sports, media and governance. The session was attended by Minister of Law and Justice Arjun Ram Meghwal, Minister of Women and Child Affairs Annapurna Devi and various dignitaries from UNDP, World Bank and United Nations. Speaking on the importance of women in the society, World Bank's Anna Biada shared her thoughts and expressed delight on seeing women in different roles, breaking gender-related barriers.
Access to education, really important. I think also India is leading the way here. It's about starting early. It's about exposing girls early to entrepreneurship opportunities as they become women and to have market relevant skills, whether it's in business, soft and hard skill. And I think India here again, the amount of women who are in STEM is impressive. The amount of women, as we saw from the video, who are in what used to be male-dominated careers, women are in India breaking this. And I think we very much also appreciate that.
On the occasion, the President also released a book called The Life and Contribution of the Women Members of the Constituent Assembly. To make it a buzz on social media, a mega campaign called #SheBuildsBharat was also organized. It saw great participation from the armed forces, paramilitary forces and Delhi police, along with My Bharat volunteers, Anganwadi workers and Asha workers, along with self-help group members. As India moves forward on the path of development, Nari Shakti will continue to be the cornerstone of a self-reliant and prosperous Bharat. Deepika Mehto's report for DD India.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in the western Indian state of Gujarat, where he launched key programs aimed at empowering rural women. Speaking at an event in Navsari, he emphasized the government's commitment to women's safety and women-led development. With the launch of the G Safal and G Maitri programs, Prime Minister Modi reaffirmed that the soul of rural India lies in its empowerment of women. DD India's Meghna Dev brings us more on the initiative.
On the occasion of International Women's Day, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the Lakhpati Didi Sammelan at Navsari in the state of Gujarat. He also interacted with Lakhpati Didis ahead of the event and highlighted the transformation in the family's fortune which has a Lakhpati Didi. He also said that these females are gradually transforming home-based work into an economic movement.
जब हमारी एक बहन लखपति दीदी बनती है तो पूरे परिवार का भाग्य बदल जाता है। महिलाएं अपने काम में गांव की दूसरी महिलाओं को भी जोड़ती है और मेरा तो विश्वास है जिस काम को माताएं बहनें हाथ लगाती है ना, उस काम का गर्व भी बढ़ जाता है। धीरे धीरे घर से शुरू हुआ काम एक आर्थिक आंदोलन बन जाता है।
Addressing the gathering on the occasion, Prime Minister Modi expressed his gratitude for the love, affection and blessings from mothers, sisters and daughters present in large numbers.
Addressing a massive gathering of over 1.5 lakh women, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the country is on the path of women-led development and is witnessing the rise of Nari Shakti. He also said that in the past decade, the government's approach has been on women's safety.
Prime Minister Modi also highlighted the launch of two schemes, G Safal and G Maitri, and also schemes like Bank Sakhi and Bima Sakhi, which have provided new opportunities for women in villages. He also said the newly implemented Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita is wiping out the colonial laws, strengthening provisions related to women's safety. Gujarat at present stands as an example of women-led development, be it the White Revolution brought in by the cooperative model of Amul or Lijjat Papar, which was started by a group of Gujarati women. Women in Gujarat have massively contributed to the rural economy. The efficiency of women in the police service was also highlighted today, with all women police personnel carrying out the responsibility of security at the Lakhpati Didi Sammelan in Navsari. Meghna Dev reporting for DD India.
The International Women's Day, marked annually on 8th March, raises awareness on the issues impacting women all over the world. This year's theme is For All Women and Girls, rights, equality, empowerment. The year 2025 also marks 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for actions to defend and advance women's rights. In India, President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended greetings on International Women's Day. DD India's Fuzail Ahmed has more.
The International Women's Day celebrates social, economic, cultural and political achievements of women. This year's theme, For All Women and Girls' Rights, Equally Empowerment, calls for action to unlock equal rights, power and opportunities for all women and girls. In line with this year's call for action, a metro station in Borivali, Mumbai made history by being managed and operated entirely by an all-women team. The year 2025 also marks the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. Secretary General urged action-oriented approach to empower women. UN Chief in a statement said,
"When the doors of equal opportunity are open for women and girls, everyone wins. Equal societies are more prosperous and peaceful and the foundation of sustainable development. We need action to unlock finance so countries can invest in equality and to prioritize those investments. Action to open up equal opportunities for decent work, close the gender pay gap and tackle challenges around care work. Action to strengthen and implement laws to end all forms of violence against women and girls. Action to secure women's full participation in decision-making, including in peace building. And action to remove the obstacles to women and girls in the fields of science, technology, engineering and mathematics."
India's President Draupadi Murmu extended greetings on International Women's Day. President called for pledge to support women in their journey.
देश की नारी शक्ति राजनीतिक, आर्थिक और सामाजिक रूप से सशक्त बने और विकसित भारत के हमारे संकल्पों को नेतृत्व प्रदान करे, इसके लिए भारत सरकार निरंतर प्रयास कर रही है। नारी शक्ति बंधन अधिनियम के द्वारा लोकसभा और विभिन्न विधान सभाओं में महिलाओं के लिए आरक्षण का प्रावधान उनके राजनीतिक सशक्तिकरण की दिशा में ऐतिहासिक कदम है।
On International Women's Day, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi handed over social media accounts to women achievers. These women belong to different parts of India and have excelled in different areas. Prime Minister wrote on social media platform X, "Since morning, you have all seen inspiring posts by extraordinary women sharing their own journeys and inspiring other women. These women belong to different parts of India and have excelled in different areas. But there's one underlying theme, the prowess of India's Nari Shakti. Their determination and success remind us of the boundless potential women hold. Today and every day, we celebrate their contributions in shaping a Viksit Bharat." Numerous events are being held in India to mark International Women's Day. In Hyderabad, City Police organized the Run for Action 2025 program on Necklace Road, Hyderabad. While in national capital Delhi, the Fit India Pink Cyclothon Season 2 themed Sashakt Nari was flagged off to mark International Women's Day. A lot has changed since 1975 when International Women's Day was celebrated for the first time. However, more needs to be done to see women at the driver's seat. Fuzail Ahmed reports for DD India.
So on the occasion of International Women's Day celebrations, the High Commission of India in Bangladesh organized a cultural program for the members of the mission community and Indian diaspora in Dhaka. The theme of the event was Stronger Her, Healthier Future. The session sought to foster empowerment, confidence and resilience in women and girls. A yoga team demonstrated various yoga asanas for working women to keep them fit, healthy and boost their confidence. A medical team demonstrated cardiopulmonary resuscitation to raise awareness about heart-related issues. The United Arab Emirates commemorated the International Women's Day with a series of tributes from its highest leadership, recognizing the pivotal role women play in shaping both national and global progress. Addressing women, President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan said, and I quote, "Sincere gratitude as you continue to inspire future generations through your pivotal impact and achievements in all fields." Vice President Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum said, and I quote, "Women are the secret of life, its story and its soul. They are the educators of generations and the creators of heroes. The Indian Army on Saturday commemorated International Women's Day with a series of impactful events across the northeastern states, reinforcing its commitment to women empowerment, health awareness and community engagement. In Manipur, the Army organized a lecture on women empowerment followed by a friendly volleyball match, witnessing enthusiastic participation from the local community. In Aizawl, Mizoram, a women's health awareness session was conducted by health experts from the Indian Army under the aegis of the Red Shield Division. Similar events were held in other northeastern states as well. With these events, the Indian Army reaffirmed its unwavering commitment to empowering women, fostering inclusivity and strengthening community bonds across the northeastern states. You're watching DD India News Hour, still to come on the show. A war monitor says 340 Alawite civilians killed by Syrian security forces in recent days. South Korea's impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol freed from detention, but trials continue. And in Australia, Cyclone Alfred weakens, but dangerous winds and flooding continue.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation has formally endorsed an Arab League counter-proposal to US President Donald Trump's controversial Gaza takeover plan. The decision, reached at an emergency meeting in Jeddah, follows the Arab League's endorsement of Egypt's $53 billion Gaza reconstruction plan. The move sets the stage for an international push to rebuild the war-torn enclave under Palestinian administration while rejecting any forced displacement of its residents.
At an emergency session in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation officially backed an Arab League proposal to rebuild Gaza, rejecting US President Donald Trump's plan to take control of the enclave.
It is certainly very positive that the emergency ministerial meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation adopted the Egyptian plan, which has now become an Arab Islamic plan. The next step is for it to be an international plan.
The Egyptian drafted plan was adopted earlier by Arab leaders at a summit in Cairo. It lays down a $53 billion roadmap for Gaza's reconstruction without displacing its Palestinian residents. This plan directly opposes Donald Trump's Middle East Riviera vision, which called for a US-led takeover and the relocation of Gazans. The OIC, which represents the Muslim world, in a statement urged the international community and international and regional funding institutions to swiftly provide the necessary support for the plan. France, Germany, Italy and Britain have expressed their support for the Arab-backed initiative, calling it a realistic path to rebuilding Gaza. The Egyptian proposal, which does not outline a role for Hamas in Gaza's reconstruction, has been rejected by both the United States and Israel. As diplomatic negotiations continue with key international players taking sides, the future of Gaza remains uncertain as of now. Bureau Report, DD India.
A Syria war monitor reported on Saturday that gunmen and security forces linked to Syria's new Islamist rulers have killed more than 340 people, including women and children from the Alawite minority in the country's coastal region since Thursday. The clashes were the fiercest since Assad, himself an Alawite, was toppled in a lightning rebel offensive in December, and came after days of tensions in Latakia province that forms part of the heartland of the religious minority. The civilian deaths bring the overall toll to 553 people, including 93 members of the new government security forces and 120 pro-Assad fighters, data from the observatory shows. Fuzail Ahmed has more.
Islamist-led government in Syria faces the biggest challenge yet to its authority, as scores were reported killed in 2 days of violence in the coastal region of western Syria. Residents say violence began with killings of Alawite civilians in the Datur area of Latakia. Syria's leader, Ahmad al-Shara, urged insurgents from toppled President Bashar al-Assad's Alawite minority to lay down their arms before it's too late.
We will continue to pursue the remnants of the fallen regime, those who refused but to continue their oppressions and tyranny, those who committed crimes against the people, and those who seek to undermine security and civil peace. We will bring them to a fair court.
While the authorities say violence spiraled on Thursday after groups of Assad-aligned militia targeted security patrols and checkpoints in the Jable area surrounding countryside, curfews were declared on Friday in the coastal city of Tartous and Latakia. In view of violence, reinforcements were sent to the coastal region to crush a nascent insurgency by fighters from Bashar al-Assad's Alawite sect. In northwest of Hama, Syria's new authorities' security forces held a funeral in Kassoun village for a fighter killed in clashes with fighters loyal to former President Bashar al-Assad. Syrians took to the streets on Friday to rally in support of the government in Damascus and other cities. The United Nations has expressed concerns over violence. In a statement, the Office of Special Envoy of Secretary General of Syria said, all parties should refrain from actions that could further inflame tensions, escalate conflict, exacerbate the suffering of affected communities, destabilize Syria, and jeopardize a credible and inclusive political transition. While Russian Foreign Ministry on Friday said it was alarmed by a sharp deterioration in security situation in Syria and called on all respected leaders of the country to try to stop the bloodshed as soon as possible. According to UN, more than 300,000 refugees have returned to Syria since President Assad was overthrown, while nearly 1 million more people were displaced inside the country have returned to their homes.
1 million internally displaced people living in camps and sites across northwest Syria intend to return to their areas of origin within the next year. 600,000 of them before the end of the summer 2025, according to a new large-scale intention survey carried out by UNHCR.
Bashar al-Assad was toppled in a lightning offensive late last year by rebels who have now formed a transitional government. Fuzail Ahmed reports for TD India.
On to Europe now. Amid ongoing hostilities between Ukraine and Russia, both sides continue to engage in intense conflict. Recent Russian missiles and drone strikes on Dobropilya and Kharkiv resulted in casualties, while Odessa faced drone terror. Ukraine targets Russian infrastructure meanwhile, and global leaders, including President Zelensky and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, push for diplomatic solutions. Could the evolving dynamics of the battle shift the path to peace? DD India's Mihir Mekure finds out.
Amid US efforts to bring Kiev and Moscow to the negotiating table for a resolution to the war, both sides continue to engage in active hostilities, striving to gain an upper hand. In the latest escalation, at least 14 people were killed and 37 wounded in Russian missile and drone attacks on Ukraine's eastern city of Dobropilya and a settlement in the Kharkiv region overnight.
People have died here. A woman, my neighbor from the third apartment and the fourth block of the building.
As a result of these strikes, several apartment buildings sustained serious damages. Half of one of the buildings has burned out completely. This is a regular residential building. There were people inside.
Russian drones also struck Ukraine's southern port city of Odessa, killing no one but causing widespread terror. In Kursk, Russia claims to have retaken 3 villages that were previously seized by Ukraine. This comes as Kiev's forces continue to lose ground in some areas. On social media, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that such strikes demonstrate that Russia's objectives have not changed and called for stronger sanctions against Russia. In response, a Ukrainian offensive led to significant damage to a Russian tank at the Kirishi oil refinery after it was struck by falling debris during a major Ukrainian drone attack. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has raised the prospect of imposing large-scale sanctions on Russia just days after pausing military aid and intelligence support to Ukraine. He also urged both sides to push forward with negotiations for a peace deal. A huddle for lasting peace is also underway. In a post on X, Zelensky stated that a highly productive meeting took place in Kiev between the diplomatic teams of Ukraine and the UK. Both sides discussed joint steps that could bring them closer to peace and accelerate diplomatic efforts. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer also spoke with his Australian counterpart Anthony Albanese on phone on Saturday. Starmer welcomed Albanese's commitment to consider contributing to a coalition of the willing for Ukraine, a coalition dedicated to defending Ukraine and ensuring long-term peace. How the changing realities on the battlefield could shift the balance of power at the negotiating table remains uncertain, but the stakes have never been higher. Mihir Makri's report for DD India.
The German conservatives of Friedrich Merz and the centre-left SPD said on Saturday that they have reached an in-principle agreement to form a government that plans to invest massively to revive and rearm Europe's largest economy. Both Merz, who will be the next chancellor, and Lars Klingbeil of the SPD said that they had successfully finished exploratory talks held in the wake of February 23 elections and would now move to a formal talk to build a coalition government. In Germany, where coalitions are the norm, governments are typically formed in two phases, with parties first holding exploratory talks and then entering into formal coalition talks. In Greece, Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis' government survived a no-confidence motion on Saturday, but challenges stemming from the rail crash which triggered the vote persist. While a judicial investigation into the train crash is in progress, Mitsotakis has promised to modernize the railway by 2027.
Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis heaved a sigh of relief as his centre-right government survived a no-confidence vote over the country's worst rail disaster. A majority of 157 lawmakers rejected the motion. The PM had ruled out an early election ahead of the vote. But as public anger over the accident grows, he told the parliament that he would propose changes in an article that protects politicians from prosecution.
If we want to build relationships of trust between Greek society and the political system, we should not give the impression that the political system, through the parliamentary majority, has the ability to protect politicians who come from the family of the respective majority.
The 2023 train crash, which claimed 57 lives, has become the government's biggest trouble due to allegations of a cover-up.
No Greek citizen will forgive your unacceptable behavior, your attack on the citizens that came to the squares, but mostly on the families of the victims. Every day we have new discoveries which lead to one conclusion, that on that night the gruesome face of an incompetent and ineffective state was unveiled.
The government's approval rating has been on the downslide as people are on the streets calling for accountability. Police and protesters even clashed outside the parliament. In a bid to contain public frustration, the PM has promised to modernize the railways by 2027. But challenges remain as a judicial probe into the train crash is going on. Bureau Report, DD India.
Marking the International Women's Day, Pope Francis sent a written message for Catholics celebrating the Holy Mass at St. Peter's Basilica, which he was not able to attend due to his hospitalization. In the message read by the Vatican's second-in-command, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the pontiff also asked people to pray for his recovery. The 88-year-old Pope Francis has not been seen in public since being hospitalized for double pneumonia since February the 14th.
Keep on betting on women, on their capacity for acceptance, generosity and courage. Women must be able to count on the support of the entire civil and ecclesial community, and the aid to life centers can become a point of reference for everyone.
Back to Asia, impeached South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol was released from detention on Saturday after a court voided his arrest on procedural grounds, but he remains under investigation over his declaration of martial law. The suspended president, who was detained in a dawn raid in January on insurrection charges over his December 3rd attempt to subvert civilian rule, walked out of the detention center smiling before bowing deeply before a small crowd of cheering supporters. The court had cancelled his arrest warrant a day earlier on technical and legal grounds, a decision that prosecutors probing Yoon called unjust. Yoon was freed after the prosecutors waived their right to appeal the court verdict, which specifically concerned technical details of his detention on criminal charges. Still to come on DD India News Hour. An expert take on the economic and market impact of escalating trade wars globally. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar meets UK Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner in Manchester.
There are people across the country and among industry sectors who are trying to make things better, rethinking the way we live.
We analyzed that if all of construction industry can start using recycled plastic sheets for just shuttering as an application, roughly 25 to 30% of all the non-recyclable plastics that you and I generate can get prevented from entering the atmosphere.
We must take responsibility as citizens to conserve these forests and protect them. They represent the cultural heritage of our ancestors.
That's a barrier made from larch, intended to dam water and help restore the wetland.
We use natural dyes for the garments. We extract the dye the way our ancestors did by using natural products with some modifications.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. US President Donald Trump, in his second stint at the White House, has abandoned the free trade policies the United States pursued for decades after the Second World War. He argues that open trade cost America millions of factory jobs and that tariffs are the path to national prosperity. But what this has triggered is tit-for-tat tariffs that dampen world trade.
I spoke to the President of Mexico, wonderful woman today.
Trump this week imposed sweeping 25% tariffs on key trade partners, Canada and Mexico, before offering temporary relief to manufacturers. But with more levies kicking in next week, the respite may be fleeting. But a new front to this trade war was added by China on Saturday, largely driven by US President Donald Trump's announcement of tariffs. China on Saturday announced tariffs on over $2.6 billion worth of Canadian agricultural and food products, retaliating against levies Ottawa introduced in October last year. Scheduled to take effect on March 20th, China will apply a 100% tariff to just over $1 billion of Canadian rapeseed oil, oil cakes and pea imports, and a 25% duty on $1.6 billion worth of Canadian aquatic products and pork. The levies match the 100% and 25% import duties Canada slapped on China-made electric vehicles and steel and aluminium products just over 4 months ago. Analysts feel the timing of such retaliatory tariffs may serve as a warning shot. By striking now, China reminds Canada of the cost of aligning too closely with the American trade policy. Meanwhile, residents of Toronto reacted to US President Donald Trump's decision to temporarily pause tariffs on certain imports from Canada.
A bit confused. Everything is going on Trump's whims, and he's completely unstable, and I think he enjoys the attention.
Now people really need to watch their dollars and tighten their belts and be more conscious about where your dollars go. I mean, a lot of people have been on that bandwagon of buy local, and I don't think everyone really understood. And now it's even more meaningful and tangible than ever before. Keep your dollars at home.
Horrible. Yeah, it's tumultuous. Ruined our relationship with the U.S. I don't think anything will improve until he's gone. And the entire Republican Party. They're toxic.
US companies faced a series of duties starting Monday, with Trump doubling an additional levy on Chinese goods before allowing 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports to take effect Tuesday. Trump's 25% tariffs across steel and aluminium imports are due to take effect next Wednesday. Further, Brazil and the United States are engaged in talks on import tariffs announced by President Donald Trump just days before they are due to take effect. Further, Trump didn't spare even Russia and said he was strongly considering imposing sweeping sanctions, including ones on banking and tariffs on Russia, until a ceasefire and peace agreement is reached with Ukraine. Certainly, what the American president has done is inject a disorienting volatility into the world economy, leaving it off balance as people wonder what will he do next. Bureau Report, DD India. And discussions on tariffs that were highlighted during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Washington, D.C. are an ongoing process. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said that the discussions have begun between the two sides. In February, India and the U.S. agreed to negotiate the first tranche of a mutually beneficial multi-sector bilateral trade agreement by the fall of 2025. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal visited Washington from 3rd to 6th of March and met with U.S. Commerce Secretary, the U.S. Trade Representative and their teams.
These are ongoing discussions, so it would not be right to get into it. But I would only point you towards the fact that we have in recent times entered into bilateral trade agreements which are based on tariff liberalization with several partners. There are ongoing discussions with several other partners on these issues now, and I think the ongoing discussions should be seen in that context as well. So I think that is our general approach, and I think it applies to any such engagement that we have with any country on these issues, on potential trade agreements, etc.
And next we are joined by our guest, Professor Harshvardhan Pant, Vice President, Observer Research Foundation. Thank you, sir, for being with us. What is President Trump's goal in imposing tariffs on imports from several countries? Is he attempting to bring these countries to the negotiating table and make them reduce or remove their tariffs on U.S. exports?
Yes, indeed. I think there are two elements to this engagement. One, of course, is about he feels that tariffs remain a very useful tool in his kitty, in his negotiating strategy, in his diplomatic strategy to engage with others, and therefore he wants to use them as much as possible in his engagement with friends and foes alike. The other element, of course, is this is related to his base. His base that voted him to power told him that, look, we are unhappy with the way economic management has happened in the US. We want more manufacturing in the US. We want more employment in the US. And I think he's responding to that Make America Great Again enterprise, the whole movement that is very inward looking, very isolationist, that looks inwards. So I think he has two or three, aspects to this engagement. And I don't think that you can look at it from one vantage point. I think both of them will play a role as he moves forward.
Canada has imposed retaliatory tariffs on certain US products. China could possibly follow suit. What are likely to be the economic consequences of this situation if it develops for economies, consumers and businesses?
I think very disastrous. Economically, we know that tariffs don't work, that tariffs, become a suboptimal outcome, produce a suboptimal outcome. The global economy is already weakening, and with tariffs coming into play in this way by multiple actors, we will see the global trade, global growth decrease, and that is not going to be very helpful to a number of people, including American consumers who are already beginning to feel the impact of inflation in their domestic economy. So by and large, we are going to see a weakening of the global economy. It depends on how far he takes these tariffs. We have seen in some cases he has given a reprieve because I think the markets reacted in a particular manner, and he's looking at the market reaction, and he saw that markets were reacting negatively, and therefore he decided to waive off for a while. But I think that the threat of tariffs, the looming threat of tariffs, that the way he's using them individually, the way he's using them as part of his diplomatic strategy, would mean that uncertainty will plague global economy, and uncertainty is never good for economy, whether domestic or global. And I think that is going to plague the global economic environment for a while, till such time as he decides what is the direction he wants to take with his economic policy. Because as of now, it looks very haphazard. As of now, it looks very
it goes back and forth as well.
Uncontrollable. Yes, exactly. It goes back and forth because there is no sense of direction that markets are getting from his strategy.
Okay, and what about China? How do you see China responding to the US hiking tariffs on imports from the country? Could it respond with its own tariff hikes? And what happens economically then?
I think it's without any doubt that China will retaliate with of tariffs. Just yesterday, we have heard, maybe 2 days back, we heard from the Chinese foreign minister who said that, look, we are prepared for all kinds of eventualities, for all kinds of wars, including tariff wars. So I think China is giving out a very stern message that they are ready with their own sets of initiatives. They are much better prepared this time because they know they have known that Trump will come and he will impose tariffs, because Trump has been tom-tomming tariffs for a while during his campaign, and I think they are much better prepared. And once China unleashes tariffs against the US, I think we are going to see this tariff war escalating only, because Trump is also going to look at that as a measure that he will have to respond to. He would not be seen as a weak president to his base, and therefore he will also respond. And you would recall that he had said that 200% tariffs I am willing to impose on China. He has only imposed 20% as of now. Out of that, 10% is in operation. So I think he's also gradually escalating the matter. But we'll have to wait and watch and see what China does, because China seems more prepared than last time. In his second term.
India is in the process of reducing tariffs on imports from the US. On which products do you see India cutting tariffs, and do you see it seeking any exemptions or concessions in cutting tariffs on certain products?
I think what India has done somewhat smartly is to link tariff issue to the wider bilateral trade agreement issue. So when Prime Minister Modi was there, Trump was talking tariffs initially, and then when the two leaders met, they decided that it is time perhaps for India and the US to look at the broader picture of the relationship, to think about a bilateral trade agreement, which has been in the talks for a while, but it could not be concluded. But perhaps this is the time now to think of that, because a lot of countries are now bilaterally engaged with the US on tariffs. India is no exception to the fact. But I think a bilateral trade agreement would allow India and the US to look at their economic partnership holistically, which would mean that certain sectors where India can cut tariffs, as you were mentioning, perhaps India has already started doing that in automobiles, for example. In the budget that was announced earlier this year, Finance Minister did roll back some tariffs, did reduce some tariffs on certain critical sectors like automobiles, and I think that was a message to the US that we are willing to rethink our strategy on tariffs vis-a-vis the US. And as the bilateral trade agreements go forward, I think we can see that happening, because for India, certain sectors would be very difficult, like agriculture. We know that agriculture is a very protected sector. We know how political economy of agriculture in India does not allow for dramatic reduction of tariffs. So I think there we are going to see a lot of contestation because America is asking for greater market access, and there India's space to maneuver is fairly limited. So I think in those sectors where India can give access, can reduce tariffs, India will do that, particularly I think on automobiles.
Okay,
and other
Professor Pant, do you see a situation developing globally where bilateral and multilateral trade negotiations will lead to a significant reduction or removal of tariffs on a range of products that even the World Trade Organization could not achieve?
See, I think there is a possibility. We are not going to see a multilateral trading regime come into place because WTO is really on almost a deathbed. If countries are not looking at WTO as the mechanism to resolve their trade conflicts, but certainly given Mr. Trump's fetish for tariffs, what we are seeing now is bilateral engagements that will happen with the US. And in fact, it is very interesting that India had already started doing that for the last few years. India is bilaterally dealing with a lot of countries and concluding a lot of these agreements, whether it is with Australia, whether it is with the CEPA, with the UAE, whether we are also in talks with Canada, we are also in talks with EU. So I think if you look at India's approach to global trade, India is bilaterally looking at this at trade now rather than looking at it multilaterally. And I think a lot of the other countries will be looking at that framework as well, given that America, the world leader, at one point in time, a country that used to talk about free trade, who used to lead the charge on free trade, has now taken a more isolationist position on this matter, has now taken a step back. And I think that's why we are going to see a reconfiguration of the global trading environment.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Professor Harshvardhan Pant, for being with us and for giving your analysis on the subject. Moving on, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar interacted with the Indian community and business leaders at Old Trafford in Manchester, reinforcing the strong ties between India and its diaspora. Addressing the gathering, the minister praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi's unmatched efforts in strengthening India's relationship with its global diaspora.
I don't think any Prime Minister has invested as much in the relationship with the diaspora as Narendra Modi has done. And the importance, the concern, the value that we put on the diaspora as a connect to the world, this wonderful term living bridge, I think is something really extraordinary. And it's not just an emotion. I think there is a deep understanding behind that, an understanding that in many ways it is the diaspora which shapes the image of India across the world.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met UK's Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner in Manchester. In a social media post on X, Dr. Jaishankar lauded Rayner, saying her encouragement has been a contribution to setting up of Indian consulates. They discussed India-Great Britain bilateral ties and efforts on increasing trade and people-to-people exchanges between the two countries. On the occasion of International Women's Day, the newly elected Delhi BJP government passed the Mahila Samriddhi Yojana during a cabinet meeting on Saturday. The Delhi government held a cabinet meeting chaired by Chief Minister Rekha Gupta and took the decision to approve the women's scheme. The scheme aims to provide 2,500 rupees to women between the age group of 21 and 60 who earn up to 3 lakh rupees a year. While addressing the press, the Chief Minister of Delhi stated that the Cabinet has approved the scheme promised during the Delhi Assembly election campaign to provide 2,500 rupees to women.
इस महिला दिवस के अवसर को सदुपयोग करते हुए हमने अपनी कैबिनेट की बैठक करी। माननीय सभी मंत्रीगण उस बैठक में रहे और दिल्ली चुनाव के अपने संकल्प पत्र में दिल्ली की बहनों से जो वायदा हमने महिला समृद्धि योजना के तहत किया था कि दिल्ली की गरीब बहन को 2500 रुपये प्रति माह देने की बात, आज उसको हमने कैबिनेट में मोहर लगा दी है।
Meanwhile, the BJP National President JP Nadda hailed the decision to approve the Mahila Samriddhi Yojana. He said that the government has allocated 5,100 crore rupees for the implementation of this scheme. And very quickly, let's take a look at other stories making news in India. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla inaugurated an exhibition organized by the National Commission for Women at the Parliament House Annex. The exhibition highlights contribution of women members of the Constituent Assembly, showcasing their pivotal role in shaping India's constitution. India's Health Minister J.P. Nadda inaugurated Health Technology Assessment Tech Compendium and Patent Mitra at the International Symposium on Health Technology Assessment held at the Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi. The initiative aims to promote affordable healthcare solutions and drive innovation in medical technology. International Women's Day was celebrated with great enthusiasm at the Kargil campus of the University of Ladakh under the theme For All Women and Girls, Right, Equality, Empowerment. The event aimed to recognize the contribution of women in society and promote gender equality. You're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for some sporting action. Well, the stage is set for a thrilling finale as India and New Zealand gear up to face each other in the ICC Champions Trophy 2025 final at the Dubai International Cricket Stadium on Sunday. The stakes couldn't be higher as both the cricketing giants compete for one of cricket's most coveted titles. A report.
India and New Zealand have faced each other 119 times in ODIs, with India winning 61 matches and New Zealand securing 50 victories. The final on Sunday will decide who will have the edge in the Champions Trophy head-to-head, as both teams are tied at 1-1 in the event. Their most recent encounter in this tournament was during the group stage, where India defeated New Zealand convincingly by 44 runs. India has been in dominant form throughout the tournament, remaining unbeaten in the group stage and the knockout round. They started their campaign with a commanding win over Bangladesh, followed by a clinical performance against Pakistan. In the semi-finals, India outclassed Australia with a stellar performance from the bowling unit led by Mohammad Shami, Varun Chakravarti and Kuldeep Yadav. New Zealand's path to the final has been a story of resilience and tactical brilliance. Except for the loss against India, Kiwis secured comfortable wins over Pakistan and Bangladesh in the group stage. In the knockout clash, they stunned South Africa with a comprehensive victory, driven by their disciplined bowling attack and a composed batting performance from Kane Williamson and Rachin Ravindra. For India, Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli hold the key to providing stability and big match experience. Mohammad Shami and Kuldeep Yadav will lead the bowling charge, with Varun Chakravarti's mystery spin being a potential game changer. For New Zealand, Kane Williamson's calm presence at the crease and Daryl Mitchell's consistency will be vital. Mitchell Satner's left-arm spin could be crucial in Dubai's conditions. India will be looking to end their 12-year wait for an ICC trophy, having last won the Champions Trophy in 2013 under MS Dhoni's leadership. For New Zealand, this is an opportunity to win a second Champions Trophy and add a major white ball title to their name after a long time. With both teams in top form and history on the line, the Champions Trophy 2025 final promises to be a thrilling encounter. Sports Desk, DD India.
The Indian women's Kabaddi team has already made Indians proud. Well, they have been crowned Asian champions for the 5th time. Defending champions India defeated hosts Iran 32-25 in the final of the 6th Asian Women's Kabaddi Championship in Tehran on Saturday. Indian women remained undefeated throughout the tournament. India had entered the final defeating Nepal 56-18 in the first semi-final on Friday. On the other hand, Iran had triumphed over Bangladesh 41-18 in the second semi-final. And as we wrap up this edition of DD India News Hour, we take you to the iconic Lotus Temple in the heart of New Delhi, where a mesmerizing opera performance unfolded on Saturday. Organized by the Nimrana Music Foundation in collaboration with the Austrian and German embassies, the event not only provided a grand stage for Indian opera singers, but also strengthened cultural ties between the nations, celebrating the universal language of music. Sit back and enjoy.
So you strangle it? Strangle it? Oh, I such a hero.
And the queen said this lock so your lips are sealed forever.
So you'll never be able to lie to the strangers again.
Mine heart's rich joy.
That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and the world on our DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. So we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.